Hey, good morning. It's Kara and Dobie Joe. We'll see how long she stays up here because I did tell her that if she keeps doing this on these videos where she's jumping down, I'm just going to have to replace her with a cat. So we'll see. We'll see if she's going to call my bluff or not. Hey, today we are working on page 31, okay? 31. Page 31, we're going to learn our A and our E chords. These are very important chords. I've already taught you how to play an E minor 7 and an A minor 7 and an E7 chord. Pretty sure, right? That's what we've done so far. I like those little two-finger 1 and two-finger chords because they get our fingers ready for what's to come, and what's to come is coming today. Page 31, your A chord. Now when you look at these diagrams, there's numbers inside the black dots. That tells you what finger you're going to be using to put on that string and on that fret. 1 means your first finger, 2 means your second finger, 3 means your third finger. There's explanations of that in the book somewhere else, but just a reminder, okay? Now when we strum our A chord, remember we've talked about root notes and what root notes are. Your root note is the single string that you start on when you strum your chord. It's also the same name as your chord. So the root note for your A chord is your A string, okay? Now, what we're going to do is we are very slowly going to stretch our fingers out and one at a time put them exactly where we want them to be. Our first finger, our second finger, and our third finger, okay? Now when you're playing these chords and when you're placing your fingers, make sure you've got lots of arch on your fingertips. You're way up on your fingertips with lots of airspace underneath your fingers, okay? A lot of times I talk to my students about imagining, my younger students anyway, I tell my adult students this too, Dobie Joe agrees, imagine a train going down the fretboard and it's got to get underneath your fingers when it gets to them. So you want to have lots of airspace under your fingernails, which you can achieve by simply getting up on your fingertips. See where my thumb is right now? My fingers just collapsed on the other strings. If I bring my thumb back and hide it, it brings me up on my fingertips, okay? So make sure you're up on your fingertips as much as you possibly can be. The other thing too is when you're learning chords for the first time, the more you have developed your calluses, the more effective those fingertips are going to be. So be patient with yourself, okay? Not only are you learning all these new things, but your body's adjusting to what you're asking it to do. And the more you callus up, the easier it is to get your fingers to do what you want them to do, okay? All right, so our A chord, let's go back to that. Pointer finger goes on the D string, 2nd fret, middle finger, 2nd fret of the G string, and our ring finger, the 2nd fret of the B string. Now, it's physically impossible to have all of those fingers right up on top of the fret, okay? So they're going to kind of have a slanted look to them. See mine up close there? See how this finger is kind of off the fret? You know, I'm always preaching to you, you want to be as high on that fret as you can be, but when you play an A chord, it's just not physically, your hand doesn't work that way. You'd have to be like that, right? It's not going to happen. So you have to sacrifice the finger position sometimes when you're playing chords. Try to get this guy right here, your third, up there as far as you can get him, and get the others up nice and close too. Make sure you're up on your fingertips, okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to get those fingers in exactly the right place. And we're going to take a little more time learning this A chord than we do others in the book. We won't spend quite this much time because you're going to apply the same techniques to learning them to the other chords. So we look at our fingers for that A chord. We look very closely at where they are. We take our hand, we open, we spread our fingers out, and then we very slowly put them right back where they're supposed to be, okay? And we repeat that, and we go really slowly because we want those fingers to go exactly where we want them to go the first time we place them, all right? We've talked about this before, and we'll talk about it a million more times. This is muscle memory. The best thing you can do for yourself is to take these kind of exercises and repeat them and go really, really, really slowly and do them over and over and over again. You got to have patience with yourself. I preach that all the time, don't I? Okay, this is such an important lesson today because I'm showing you basically how to learn all of your chords on the guitar. Anytime you have a new chord that you're learning, very patiently put your fingers right in the same place that they're supposed to go, open and repeat. Trust me, your fingers will pretty soon, they'll just go there for you. When you say, hey, I want an A chord, they're going to go, wow, is that what you want? Okay. Now, if you don't do what I'm saying, if every time you play your A chord, you've got your fingers all in the wrong place, you go, hey, there's my A chord. Uh-oh, no, it's not. It's there. Then every time, my friend, that you ask yourself to play an A chord, you are telling your fingers that they're supposed to go to the wrong place and then adjust to the right place. Don't do that. My name is Kara, and I've been teaching instruments all of my life, and right now I'm currently 61 years old. I have taught thousands of people how to play. I know what works, and I know what doesn't work. So do as I say, all right? Slowly go back and forth on that A chord, okay? Open and repeat, open, spread, repeat, over and over again. You can do that while you're watching TV, as long as you check and make sure you're doing it the right way, okay? You can sit there and do that for hours. Oh my gosh, that would be so great. The best musicians are a little bit obsessive compulsive. It's true. All right, that's how we play our A chord. I want you to practice that. Let's look at our E chord. Our root note is the open E string, okay? So we're going to strum all 6 strings when we strum this chord. Our first finger goes on the first fret of our G string. Our second finger goes to the second fret of the A string, and our third finger goes to the second fret of the D string, okay? We look very closely at how we're doing that, and we agree with ourselves that all of our fingers are in good place. We're up on our fingertips. We open, we spread our fingers, and we go very slowly, and we place them all right back where they were. And we repeat that over and over and over again. Okay, now here's a little trick. I don't think I've told you this yet. When you're practicing any chord, when you first learn a chord, there's going to be a series of 1 to 3 steps. Sometimes, 1 to 3 steps. First finger, second finger, third finger. There's 3 steps right now. Pretty soon you'll get that to where you put your first finger, and then your second and third will go together like in 1 step. So you've got 2 steps, okay? Then pretty soon it's just a 1-step process. Everything goes where it needs to go. But here's something that might help you get ahead a little faster. If you find that you're always putting your first finger down and then these 2, you can stay if you want. Am I bumping you with my guitar? I think that's what's going on. If you find that you're always playing your first finger down first, try putting these 2 down and then your first finger. In other words, reverse the way you're fingering it, okay? So if I was always putting my first finger down, 1, 2, 3, then I might try 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Okay? Do it backwards. If it's 2 steps and these 2 fingers, you might put those 2 fingers in and then that one, then your first finger. So try that backwards like that. What you're going to find is if you start doing them backwards, as many times as you've done them the first way, okay, if you reverse the process, that they all will start to go down all at once. That's a really, really cool thing. So that's a little secret tip I can give you that not a lot of people do, okay? All right, gang, we're still on page 31. Let's look at the bottom of the page because we're talking about how to shift from an A chord to an E chord and back to an A chord, okay? When we play our A chord, we're like this, okay? When we want to shift to an E chord, there are 2 steps that take place. The first finger comes back and down. These 2 guys stay together as a team and fly over to those next 2 strings. Let me see if I can show that to you up close. Okay, so here's my A chord like this. Step 1, this guy comes back like that, and then these 2 guys right here stay together as a team and go forward. And then when I go back to my A, the reverse happens. They come back and he steps in. Whoops, I did that wrong. When we go for my E, okay, they go all the way back to here and he falls down. Okay, but it's right there on the bottom of the page. You can see a really clear diagram of how I want you to do that. A chord to E, he comes back, he goes forward. Okay, when I go back to my A, they come all the way back and he goes down. All right, practice that move back and forth a lot. Okay, all right, let's go to page 32. Remember, there shouldn't be a break in your rhythm as you change chords or repeat back to the beginning of the exercise. Use your metronome or click track to keep your strums steady. It's so true. You're going to hear me say that almost every time I see you on these videos. I really want to quickly talk about page 73, though. On page 73, I made a chart for you to keep track of your progress. And let's go back there. Let me take a look and see exactly what it looks like, because I've given you, I think, 6 little boxes. No, I've given you 8 boxes. And it says date and click. So if we look at the second one down, it's the A, or no, the third one down is the A to E change, okay? So what you would do is you would set your metronome, and you would set it on whatever tempo you need to set it on that you can make the change. Today we're going to be practicing at 80, but you're going to need to slow this down and practice on your own. So if we go every other click on that, and we go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. This isn't in the book what I'm playing right now. 3, 4, and 1. Okay? So let's say that I'm able to repeat 4 A's and 4 E's back and forth a few times without missing a beat. Okay? I am going to write down the fastest number I can do that with at, and let's say that it's 80 right now. So I would write today's date, and I would write 80 in that little box, and I would keep track of it. Then the next week, I would see how fast I can make the change. You might come up to, let's say you've worked so hard that you can get it all the way up to 100 without missing a beat. So this is we're pretending here, and this is the next week, so you go. And you can do that perfectly, right? You can do it there, but when you take it a little bit faster, say 1:20 or something, you go like this. You just missed a beat. You can't write that down. That was not successful. Your last successful number was 100, so you would write the date down and 100 beats per minute. What you're going to find over a course of 8 weeks or so, or whenever you fill those little boxes in, you're going to see your progress, and you can measure your progress week to week and see that you're actually improving. So many times students come in to see me in person and they're like, I didn't do very well this week, and I've made some notes and stuff of how they did the previous week, and I see all kinds of progress. But because you guys are going to be doing this with yourselves all the time, you're not going to notice that progress as much as someone like me who only hears you once a week. So that's the advantage of keeping track of your progress in the back of the book. You'll be able to see it, and it'll be encouraging for you. You'll see that you're actually making some headway by practicing. Okay, so we're back to 80 beats per minute. We're going to go through this page. Let's see, let's talk about the very first exercise before we turn the metronome on page 32. I gave you like a thing to say while you're practicing these chords, and it's just a simple thing to try to keep you steady. I'm going to count to 4, and I'll do this exercise for you so you can see what it's gonna be like. 2, 3, 4. Try to read these simple words you see below each chord with steady strums and perfect moves across the fingerboard. So you want to keep that really steady. You don't want it to be try to read these simple words you see below each chord with. Okay, you don't want to practice that way. You want to practice slowly and with a metronome. Speaking of which, let's turn it on and let's look at exercise number 1. We have 2 measures of A followed by 2 measures of E, and we're going to repeat that line once we've accomplished 1 line through it. Does that make any sense? No. Here we go. Line 1. 1. We're going every other beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. You'd be surprised at what goes on inside this head when I'm teaching. Here's the second measure. To be a break. You want to be able to play right along with me and keep up with those changes. So we're going to repeat. Back to A. We're still on line 1. And E. Okay, now we're going to go to line 2. Now remember the good old boom diddy technique. If you aren't sure about the timing, practice boom, 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 diddy. Practice saying that and say it a few times to yourself to where you start to feel the rhythm. Boom, 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 diddy. This is line 2. We could also count that 1, 2, 3, 4, and. Remember, when you have a pair of eighth notes, the first guy gets the number, and the guy next to him, he's referred to as the and. Okay? Here's line 2, starting with our A chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here comes E. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. 1, 2, 3, 4. Repeat. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. E. 2, 3, 4, and. Now right after this, we're going to go right to line 3. 3, here we go. 4, and line 3. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. 1. Don't hold your breath. 2, 3, and let's go back to the beginning of line 3. 1, good job. 2, 3, and 4, and. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. Okay, we're going to go to line 4 now. Now, I want you to try to stay with me on these videos. I don't want to imagine that you're in your kitchen getting a glass of chocolate milk, and in your office, the video of me is going, "Hey, good job!" Okay? Yeah, that doesn't fly right with me. Let's do line 4, and then we're going to be done with this lesson. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and. Boom, diddy, boom, diddy. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and here's your E chord. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and. 1, 2, and 3, 4. Back to A. We're going to do each one of these lines at least twice. 3, 4, and. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and. Okay, let's wrap this lesson up. We were playing that at about 80 beats per minute, and we were going every other beat. That was at 80. If you weren't able to keep up with me at 80, take your click track or your metronome, whatever device you're using, back it way down to where you can do these exercises at that tempo, right? And then slowly try to speed it up. But as soon as you start missing beats, when you go from one chord to the other, back it back down again and try to challenge that number on your click track or your metronome, okay? If you practice that way, I promise you, you will succeed. You will totally get this. Seriously, I mean it. Okay, what else was I going to say? One thing that I do a lot is, because I'm 61 years old and I got my first guitar when I was 10. When I was 10 years old, from that point on, they would have to pull it out of the bed with me at night because I would fall asleep playing. You'll see my thumb peeking up over the top here. So at 10 years old, my hands were still growing and developing, and my hands are shaped around my guitar neck. So I'm going to tell you to do things differently than I do sometimes. I really want you to hide your thumb. See how my thumb's peeking up now? I'm going to hide it from you, and that's the way I want you to have your thumb. Keep it back behind there so that you're up on your fingertips and there's lots of airspace, lots of arch to your fingers, okay? All right, I think that's pretty good for today. Let's call this lesson, and the next time we see each other, we're going to learn our D chord. So practice really hard before we learn our D chord, okay? I'll see you then. Thanks so much.